Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to a new episode of Stripping the Dipping. This is Ahmed speaking, and here I am with Mr. Rob. And I don't know where to start with this first, but I think uh, Georgina, you may have the worst idea to ever make me the host of this show. I'm just kidding. I'll make sure I do as good as I can. Uh, Rob, hello. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's what is it? It's nearly 10:30 at night for me in Sri Lanka, but I've got a cup of coffee, so I'm fired up and ready to go.
That's great. That's great. Well, you may go ahead and give us an introduction about you and your line of work and take it from there.
Beautiful. All right. Well, look, thank you for the opportunity to jump on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Little background: Rob Hill, CEO and co-chairman of Auto Group International. So we have, for the last 30 years, converted American vehicles from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. It's what we do. So we take, I don't know, a muscle car, so a Dodge Challenger or a Chev Camaro, your pickup trucks, so your GMC Sierra or your Ford F-150s, or your SUV, so a Lincoln Navigator or a GMC Yukon Denali. And our world is all about taking those American vehicles, left-hand drive vehicles, and converting them from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. And then we ship them around the world. So in a way, it's kind of one of those things that's super easy to explain. We get an American car, we shift it from left-hand drive to right-hand drive, but actually within that is a massive amount of engineering and complexity that enables our customers to be able to, to have their dream car in any of the 65 odd right-hand drive countries around the world.
That's actually pretty interesting. To be honest, and I might sound silly right now, I never knew you can actually shift the car from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. And are you doing that based on just the customer want to do that, or is it because there are some cars hard to find from, let's say, left-hand drive or right-hand drive?
Look, yeah, good call, good question. Look, there's a couple of sides of it. I mean, a lot of the American manufacturers simply do not build a right-hand drive version of their cars. The economics are not there. The market is not big enough in, I'll give you a sense, we ship a lot of vehicles into Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, India, Bangladesh, UK, South Africa, Cyprus, all around the world. But for a lot of the American manufacturers, the volume is simply not there for them to gear up and set up a manufacturing facility to cater for that demand. So we've always sort of sat in that niche. So that's kind of where we live. And as to the reason why, look, there are lots of people that, if we pick a muscle car as an example, so, in a way, pretty linked to the F1 world. If you want to drive a Chev Camaro, a Z01 Camaro, or a Challenger Hellcat, the only way you can do it if you happen to live in Australia or the UK is to have a right-hand drive conversion done. So that's kind of the world in which we live. Some of them are practical. Give you an example, we do a lot of the big GMC and Ford pickup trucks, and they're massive, but they're practical. If you pick our Australian market, Australians, of which I'm one, love to tow big boats and caravans and those sorts of things. So they need a pickup truck that's got, a 6.7 litre diesel engine in it. Things like the muscle cars, they're not particularly practical, but they're super cool. And the SUVs, honestly, there's only one country really in the world that makes, the proper big SUVs, and that's the Americans. And we have, a client base that wants to have a right-hand drive variant of one of the big 7-seat powerful SUVs. So it's a different market. And you're right, lots of people don't even know that they're available. Yet
Yeah.
we've been doing it for a very long time.
Sorry, is this question. Um, how many cars, if you have ever counted, have you guys worked on?
Yeah.
How
So
many cars you guys have worked on?
yeah, okay. So it's about 4,500. So our record keeping back, 30 odd years ago. So my dad started this 31 years ago with one pickup truck that he bought in America, shipped to Australia, converted, and then, we grew from, a backyard kind of business, quite literally, to, we've got a multi-million-dollar facility here in Sri Lanka, and I've got a team of 175 people. But it's about 4,500 to 4,600 or 700. So a lot,
Wow,
is the
it's an impressive number, to be honest. And now that you told me that you're based currently in Sri Lanka, how do you find it in Sri Lanka? I know the nature is beautiful. How are you finding the weather?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, look, I'm an Aussie that spent 10 years in London and sort of, doing the corporate thing around the world. And I love it. I mean, I choose to be here. But whether, it's the combination of, yeah, you're right. Look, it's a beautiful country. It's a tropical paradise. I laugh in a way because I live here and I get to enjoy it, and I have an incredible Sri Lankan team. But I'll go out and I'll see people who are here for a week or 2 weeks on their holidays. They'll have lived in cold old England or wherever they happen to be, and the highlight of the year is a, I don't know, 10, 12, 14-hour flight in 7 days, or maybe if they're lucky, 2 weeks in Sri Lanka. So I'm pretty fortunate that I get to live here all year round. And what's not to love? Tropical, incredible people. It's always 30 degrees. The food's
The
amazing.
food.
Beaches are perfect. I don't want to be in London.
You don't want to be in London because all I can
Or
tell you,
Melbourne or Sydney. Goodness no.
well, London at the moment, so all you're gonna get is rain. That's as much as I can
Well,
tell you.
yes, yeah, no. Well, to be fair, again, I've lived in the UK for a very long time. It's beautiful and I do love it, but there are 6 months of the year that are average at best.
Um, we gonna talk about other topics. It's a little bit
Yeah.
into the. How do you have a favorite motorsport series?
Look, I do. I mean, obviously F1 is definitely there. I think, in a
It's
way,
the
not
top
so
dog
much.
basically, but just any particular one. It could be something random. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I mean, I definitely like sort of the rally sports, the adventure side of it. In the sense that maybe it's a little bit more unpredictable, a bit crazy. Some of the Red Bull stuff that they do is just, I mean, bonkers. So yeah, I think I've got a broad interest across lots of motorsports. So, I think if it's competitive and it's interesting, then it definitely tweaks my interest.
It's a very interesting point that you have mentioned Red Bull because um, obviously they are a big name in Formula One and currently the dominant team in Formula One. And
Indeed.
the way how they advertise everything about their company, it's
Yes.
pretty interesting to see because even non F1 fans, you could be a non F1 fan, but
Hmm.
even then, you know about Red Bull F1 team or a Red Bull F1 car. And like
Absolutely.
when you ask people in the realm of, right, you don't know anything about F1, could you guess who's in there? Red Bull is one
Yeah.
of the names. Ferrari is one of
Always.
the names, obviously.
Of course.
And then they'll start bringing names like, oh, is BMW there? Oh
Yeah.
no, they're not there. So, but
Yeah.
then they start to realize. So, Red Bull, technically speaking, their advertisement is just once widespread across all motorsports, even into the aviation series, racing series as well.
Which is
They
crazy. I
started it.
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole. Yeah, I mean, it's like a video game. But I mean,
Yeah,
Red Bull's super cool in the sense that you never see a can. I mean, they sell a soft drink, but you never see a can. You never, it's and then the extreme. And I guess F1's part of that world, isn't it? It's that whole extreme sport adventure theme that they run.
you don't have to drink Red Bull or to know it, or just to buy one to know it, but just the way how they are everywhere. And when I
Yeah,
say
absolutely. In fact, I'll
everywhere,
tell you one of my favourite motorsport things is and what's it, the F1, the Red Bull, what do they call it? The Derby, where they build the karts that the such soapbox. What do they call it when they race those ridiculous karts down hills in various cities around the world? Have you
hold on,
seen
hold
that?
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Hold on.
Bit of Googling's needed here because I'm the same way, but
Yeah,
it's 10 o'clock at night. But soapbox, is that what it's called?
something like that.
Yeah,
Hold on,
yeah.
I'm gonna check
Which
it
is
out.
not, any form of professional
Yeah, it
extreme
is.
technology,
It
but
is so box. So hold
soapbox
on.
racing. Come
Uh, I'm gonna see if I can share this with you. Hold on, give me a second.
Again,
So
definitely not F1 or, highly engineered like the work that we do, but it's slightly bonkers and pretty cool.
hold on, give me a second.
All right. The magic of
Uh,
the internet.
can you see this?
Uh,
Give me
Not yet.
right. This is where I look like an old man trying to get things around. Right. Can you see this? I don't know
I
if you can
can't, but
see.
I can probably bring it up on my screen.
So this is basically
Oh, here we
what's
go. Yep. Yeah,
so
this is it.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's bonkers. This is. I mean, I
Oh
think they need to adapt some of this into F1,
yeah.
particularly.
I mean some of them they try to bring a model of a car that looks like F1 cars. I think
True. But
or hold on. This looks
yes,
like in
it's
Australia, or am I tripping?
no. This is. I reckon this could definitely sort of New Zealand or one of the
Yeah.
Pacific Islands. But the whole concept, obviously, before the race, is that
Oh,
they've
here we
got to do
go.
some sort of dance or performance, which I think could be a cool thing to bring into F1. Spice it up a
I
little
mean,
bit.
I think well, Formula One races in Australia. So yeah, I mean, honestly, this I don't care how much they pay me. I would not try it. I would try it if they
No,
pay me before doing it. But because I know going into this, doing this craziness, I'm not ready to to
no.
get
You
myself
want to
injured.
know?
That
Yeah, you want to know where the closest hospital is my feeling, because some of these guys go down
yeah, I'm
pretty
sorry.
quickly, and um,
I'm not ready. I'm not ready to be going through the strain of pain.
yeah,
But yeah,
no, no,
I mean, in F1, it's like a whole different concept because
it is.
if you think about it, it's like for those who don't know, it's like you can from an F1 team, you can build a rocket ship, like
Oh
literally,
yes, yeah,
if you can, because to be able to build a car that can go in a corner in speed around like 250 kilometers an hour, I wouldn't know how much that in mile because yeah, this is where
yeah,
my so let's say like 120 miles cornering.
yes,
That's some insane speed to be able to do that. And to do that, you need a lot of engineers. You need a lot of um, aerodynamic work. Like you could have the best engine, but if your car is aerodynamically inefficient, then it means nothing. And it could be the other way
yes,
around. You could have a
yeah,
very aerodynamic efficient car, but if the engine itself is not good enough, then it means absolutely nothing. So you need to have that balance of engine and aerodynamics, and on top of that, a good driver. And
yes,
speaking of good drivers, like currently in F1, there's a man goes by the name of Max Verstappen,
indeed,
completely annihilating the
a legend.
sport. Yeah, I mean currently he's on his way to become a legend and one of the best of all time,
Yes,
honestly, from what he's doing.
yeah,
But it's just a matter of a man and a machine. And also that
yes.
man needs a good machine, no matter how great he is. If you give him something that is not great enough, there's just a limited things to what he can do.
Now,
But
look,
yeah,
you're right, and it's when you talk of the size of the teams, and you think of most of the big teams, so Red Bull, Mercedes, etc., Oracle, Oracle, Red Bull, they've all kind of got I don't know 1,000 employees, give or take a few hundred, focused on. Obviously, there's more than two cars that they have, but yeah, effectively, if you've got 1,000 people, a huge number
it's
of
two cars per
engineers.
team. So it's two
Yes.
cars per team. There's 10
Yep.
teams, two cars, so you have 20
Yep.
cars in total.
Plus
It's
your development
yeah,
side of things. But I kind of put that in perspective that, I've got 170 people here and we've got about 35 engineers. So what we do with 35 engineers is quite extraordinary. I think of the fact of, a team like Red Bull having 1,000 employees, clearly hundreds of engineers, focused on, a handful of cars. It's just, for me, mind blowing because I guess in a way we have an insight because we do some pretty major open heart surgery on our vehicles. And I can see what our engineers are capable of and what they achieve. And I'm just kind of, I scratch my head and think, imagine what you could do if you had 200 of them or 300 or 400, yet only focused on, a singular platform and making it the fastest in
Uh,
the world. It's quite incredible.
Speaking of engineers, like even like currently in Red Bull, so what you would call probably
Hmm.
the greatest car designer of all time in motorsport,
Yes.
Adrian Newey. There are other names up there in the
Yep.
debate, but like the man has won single-handedly his car designs won 23 titles
Indeed.
or championships.
Yes.
To do that in F1, it's something you can only get lucky to win championships in F1, let alone to basically build and design something and win 25 times in a
Across
different way.
different, yes, yeah, across
I
different
mean,
teams.
different seasons, and yeah, and
Yes,
different teams as well. He did it. So he did it first with the Williams,
indeed.
jumped to McLaren. From McLaren, he went and settled in Red Bull, which everyone was laughing at the beginning when he moved to Red Bull. It's like it was more like, oh my god, it's just like this is a money move because in order for you to go to an energy drink team and just
Yes.
basically be there and just
Yeah.
sit. Uh, and you leave Ferrari and you leave McLaren, you leave some big names in F1, and just go to Red Bull. And he
Yes.
created the monster of the Red Bull that we know. He didn't create them financially, but he created them with his own design.
Indeed.
So in today's news, the breaking news that he's leaving Red Bull to another
Yeah.
team, and just his
It's
news of him leaving to somewhere else is just like uh, it's like earth shattering for the F1 itself. Like, where is he gonna go? And if he leaves completely to retire, deservedly so,
yes.
for many fans, they're seeing it as could be an opportunity to have a level field because with him being around,
Hmm.
and in every team, there's that one top engineer who
Yes.
oversees everything. He brings his own design and puts his design, and there are like, let's say, another 20, 30 to 100 engineers who works with him
Hmm.
on his design. So he
Yes.
is that top guy in Red
Yep.
Bull, and now he's leaving. Obviously, other engineers that are under him will learn from his experiences, from his designs, the stuff he taught them. But um, I'm gonna bring this around, and I'm gonna ask you, as a person who, obviously, for sure, in so many projects, you have faced some challenges.
Yes.
Let's say from flipping a car, from having steel wheels from the right to the left or left to the
Hmm.
right, you may have some challenges. Do you? I'm not saying name anybody,
Hmm.
so you can be fair. Do you have that one engineer in the team, or two or three engineers who go around and find solutions outside of the box?
Yeah, look, we do, and I think for us, it's interesting in that, and in our world, we've got, I don't know, 35 engineers, we've got about 100 people in production. So for me, it's not necessarily always the engineer or an engineer. I certainly, we have a core crew who would just blow my mind. And both in the sense of, obviously, from a formal education perspective, but a practical experience. But for me, our magic often happens when it's our engineering crew working with our production crew, and watching. And there's a small group of them that honestly I'm just in awe of. And in our smaller version and whatnot, and I often liken what we do to either an F1 team or certainly a Premier League football team, where there are a whole bunch of crew that contribute, and often it is, and I guess you're talking about Adrian Newey, what that comes from is obviously an incredible intellect and incredible formal training, but also a massive amount of experience. And there's definite parallels within our teams where, given that we've converted thousands of vehicles, I mean, today, to give you a sense, there's probably a dozen different vehicles that are in here being converted from left-hand drive to right-hand drive. So we just don't do, a Ford F-250 and do hundreds of them. I mean, today we've got Hummer EVs, Lincoln Navigators, Chev Camaros, Dodge Challengers, GMC pickups, some armored vehicles, some luxury interior vehicles, and probably a bunch of things that Dodge Durango. So we have a whole range of vehicles, but seeing that small group of people come together and problem solve and be creative is just, it blows my mind. And I think the other part of what we do, which is interesting, is that there's no kind of instruction manuals. We don't get a vehicle and then, I don't know, go look up how to do it on YouTube or jump onto Amazon and buy parts. There are about 500 components, give or take, on most vehicles that need to be considered, redesigned, reverse engineered, manufactured, whether they're metal or plastic or fiberglass, etc. So I honestly, the thrill for me is watching our incredible crew put it together. And for most people, and maybe, I mean, you're a good example, a lot of the people who see our vehicles when they're right-hand drive just assume they've come out of the original OEM factory. And that's actually our job. Our job is to do it so that when you jump in your now right-hand drive version, people go, oh, okay, well, that just looks like it came out of the factory. What they don't see are the thousands of hours and the experience, etc. So yeah, there's definitely parallels there.
I mean, the thing is, like when we were talking now about cars and everything,
Yeah.
well, we're not particularly into building cars ourselves as the group that I am in. It's called Mena
Yes.
Prix.
Mm-hmm.
So um, we are mostly focusing on media part of
Okay.
it, and
Yes.
we try to look into not just like Formula One. We're trying to expand into other things because the motorsport world is just wide.
Indeed.
Even just the idea of building a car itself,
Yes. Yeah.
it's alien to people in so many ways. So
Yes.
what I usually try to do is bring the team. So we have a very diverse team.
Mm-hmm.
We have uh, some boys and girls from Saudi Arabia. We have from Canada,
Okay.
Mark, and we have. So the team is, we're almost international. We just need uh, one person or two from South America and from Europe, and I think
Okay.
after that
And you got
we
everybody
gotta
covered.
yeah. So basically, we have the whole continents, all the
Yep.
continents covered. So yeah, on a way, we are trying to expand from just being a media and become a platform
Mm-hmm.
for other creators who are interested into either motorsport, either into vehicles in general, um, as well as we want to just show another perspective of the Middle East to the world,
Yes.
because I know that Middle East in general, um, uh, this is not off topic. This is exactly what we're doing. The Middle East in general is pretty alien to a lot of people. A
Yeah.
lot of people don't know much about the Middle East, and usually most of the source of the media is social media or news outlets themselves.
Yeah.
So now with Formula One expanding a lot specifically, and not just Formula One, MotoGP,
Yes.
there's World Endurance Racing, WEC, and then you have I mentioned MotoGP or am I tripping?
Yep. 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 No, you have.
Yeah, I did. So, and you have Rally Dakar. All these
Mm-hmm.
are currently in Saudi Arabia all together. In
Yes.
2026, they're going to be all together. Obviously,
Okay.
Formula One races in different countries. Same thing for WEC, but Rally
Mm-hmm.
Dakar specifically races in Saudi Arabia. MotoGP races worldwide as well, and they're going to have a race in Saudi. So,
Okay.
with this many races coming around Saudi Arabia and this people in Middle East being like, uh, what you like to call uh, a motorheads or
Yes.
like, so they're crazy about cars.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand or know, is there any people even watch motorsport there? Are there
Yeah.
even people who are interested in motorsport? So there are these kind of questions always being asked.
Yeah.
And when Mena Grand Prix was founded by our founder Rima,
Hmm.
uh, she had this idea of bringing many motorsport enthusiasts into one hub. And the
Right.
idea at the beginning was just a platform, and now we are a company officially.
Okay. Yes.
Um, and from there, we jumped to trying to bring more motorsport creators into being under one platform,
Hmm.
but they have their own vision and ideas. Nothing changed, nothing touched. They can keep their identities and just do what they do. And we have as well, since you're speaking about engineers and working
Hmm.
into factories and building cars, we have many other engineers working with us and part of the media. And
Okay.
here, hey, myself as an aviator as well,
Yes.
part of them. So when we're talking about either the auto world or the motorsport in general,
Hmm.
there's a lot of to look into and to link. It's
Yeah.
mostly engineering. A lot of people think that to be in Formula One, you need to be like straight away, like you go from Harvard and straight just go to F1. No, you
Yeah.
can have a proper mechanical engineering degree or a proper engineering degree, work from somewhere and just take the steps. Like you can start, let's say, with Auto Group International. Sorry, I'm not giving ideas to your
Yeah. Yeah.
employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can start with Auto Group International and then jump from any racing series so you can have an idea and understanding about the mechanics behind it and how it works, and if things are going wrong, what you can do outside of the box. And you
Yes.
jump to something one step higher and you start building your CV till that one day you can get that ideal job that you want, either let's say in Formula One,
Yeah.
MotoGP,
Yes.
WEC, IndyCar in US, NASCAR. So it just, the varieties are there, but it's just like it's not always easy to make it, and there's just a handful few of people who makes it into motorsport.
Yes.
And the top motorsport platforms we're talking here, I'm not talking about like all of them. So yeah, but coming back to the topic here about Mina Grand Prix, so we
Hmm.
just trying to build that identity of showing exactly what is a motorsport fan in Middle East is like, and that there is a lot of motorsport fans. And
Absolutely.
just with F1 showing up in Saudi, there was before in 2021,
Hmm.
the amount of people who were interested in F1, there were many, but it's mostly, I would say, the old school.
Yes.
But then when F1 came in 2021 and now in 2024, when you go to the circuit, you see a lot of like, I would say, from 20 under.
Yes. Yeah.
They're
Absolutely.
mostly filling up
Yes. Yep.
the stands and everything. So a lot of people don't have a vision around that. They don't see it, and yeah, we hopefully one day we get to
Oh, look,
reach that
you know
idea.
what? I think it's growing, and I think the interest in motorsports clearly is growing. And I think that people are seeing there are pathways to it. And I'll give you an example. Sort of, JW Networks, whose podcast we're on, they ran an incredibly cool project over the last 3, 4, 5 months with about women in motorsport. So which we participated in. And it was a go-karting event for women. So I think about, I don't know, 20 something, 22 of my female crew, engineers, finance, HR, safety, etc., all participated in this absolutely awesome go-karting event. So we're a long way from F1, but it was super cool. It was amazing in that a lot of the women who were there from our team don't drive or don't have a license, but I mean, some of them were not particularly quick, but some of them were like, oh my goodness, you could be an F1 driver. Just had it in their body, just had the rhythm and had the driving lines, etc. But for me, there are those sorts of initiatives which are creating opportunities. I mean, here, 34% of our professional workforce are women, and it's something that we actively encourage. And for me, you know, yeah, I guess I have a different perspective. I grew up in Australia. I had a corporate career that took me to the UK. I worked around the world. So I'm a huge supporter of our team taking steps and dreaming big, because if you don't aim for the moon, then you're not going to get anywhere near. So I can see, is there any reason why any of my engineers here, male or female, couldn't be working for an F1 team in a number of years' time? Absolutely not. They are world class. And indeed, with what we do, to give you a sense, there's maybe half a dozen companies on the planet that do left-hand drive to right-hand drive conversion. So there's very few, and we are, probably, and maybe I'm a bit biased, probably the best. But but there's no doubt that a number of the engineering crew that we have here have got the potential to be able to go and work their way, outside of Sri Lanka more than likely, but through the ranks of various, the various levels of motorsport. And honestly, I'd love the idea that in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, that some of my crew, some of our family were now out. I don't know. How cool would it be one of our engineers working for, McLaren or Red Bull or whatever? I mean, that would be super cool.
I mean, I would love to hear a story one day that one of your engineers is actually in F1. And speaking of women drivers in F1,
Yep.
last year F1 started something called F1 Academy, which brings
Mm-hmm.
women
Indeed.
into it's a different series. So they're not technically racing in F1 cars; they're racing in an F4 Formula
Yes.
4 spec
Yeah.
car. So personally, when I saw them on the F4 cars, I was like, it would have been better if it was an F3 cars to start.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea, it's not about them racing in F2 or F3 or F4 cars. The idea is finding that one talent that could
Yes.
finally be a full-time racing driver in Formula One.
Oh, it's
Because the
going to
last
happen.
time
It's
I
going to
I
happen.
I hope so. I mean, the
Oh,
thing
yeah.
is, like, there's a lot of there are a lot of things around it, but we're not gonna get into details because the
Yeah.
last time I think a woman raced in F1 officially in a race and scored points, I forget her name, an
Mm-hmm.
Italian lady. Hold on. I'm just gonna get so I don't get my facts wrong.
Absolutely.
So when was that? Oh, uh, oh, there are quite a few. So in terms of women in F1, there were many women who have had a present in F1, either taken like practice sessions or being part of the team. So
Yes.
the first one was Maria Teresa de
Mm-hmm.
Filippis. So
Okay.
she was the first woman to race in F1, and she raced her debut in 1948.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, so we're talking about a very long time. And
Yes. Yeah. Now, look,
no,
my
sorry,
sense is
no,
that. Mhm.
correction. She made her competitive debut in 1948,
Right.
finishing second in a local hill climb at a
Mm-hmm.
wheel of a Fiat Topolino. Her mother's advice was go slow and win.
Yes.
From there, De Filippis ascents through motorsport took her to Formula One, where she became the first female driver to compete in a championship race in 1958. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just to correct myself. And her initially fell in to qualify in Monaco. She qualified 19th place in Belgian Grand Prix,
Right.
racing Maserati 250F. So De Filippis crossed the line and finished in 10th. So
Right.
basically, we're talking since 1958, the last time a woman raced in F1, and that's quite a long time. And women been finding challenges to be part of motorsport, and which is a male-dominated sport.
Look,
Um,
it is. But my sense is that it won't take long. And I think one of the good things with motorsport, and let's pick F1, is that it is a clearly, the drivers have to be incredibly fit and incredibly strong. But it's
the
not.
G-force is
Yeah, yeah,
insane.
absolutely. But if you look at it, if you look at football as an example, there is a physicality difference between often men and women, which makes the competitive. Or swimming is a good example. There is just or tennis. There is a physicality aspect which makes it difficult in occasions to be able to compete. But in F1, actually, my sense, my premonition is that in hopefully not too many years, it's going to be.
You feel it's possible?
Oh, I do. I do because it's I mean, let's be honest, women are smarter than men, so they have
I
that
mean,
advantage.
yeah,
They're able to multitask and focus on more things than at once. So yeah, I just and there's no physical. The strength element is fine, but there's no. You don't need to be 6'6", as you would to play football or other elements. So yeah,
yeah,
I have a sense that it's a sport that you're going to get some pretty cool gender balance coming, and they just need the opportunity, and it is definitely obviously a lot of F1 races today obviously start at the from karting and go up through all the different series. So yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that it's not going to be long until we start to see um, yeah, some women on the grid.
I would really love that, and I can see few names. Uh,
Yes.
Look, my heart says I wish or I hope, and they are both talented, and also because maybe my opinion here is biased, because they are from my region.
Yes.
So in F1 Academy, there's two Arab girls, and they're both sisters, Amna and Hamda Al Kubaisi. In my
Okay.
heart, I hope they go far and make it.
Yes.
However, and I think they have it in them. It's just like
Yeah.
sometimes you just need a little bit of that consistency. There's one name that is, I would say, scary to watch, and
Mhm.
it's Dorian Pain, a
Yeah.
French F1 Academy driver, and she
Okay.
was formerly with I forget the name of that racing group. I don't want to say it wrong.
Mhm.
Uh, she was the name skipped my mind, but yeah. Um, so Dorian, uh, people in English say Pin, but I think in French is Pain. Uh,
Right.
she's super talented. The difference between her and most of the grid is scary. The
Yeah.
one thing I would say, if she keeps at it and by some way she manages, I think she could be one of the first, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah.
And one way or another, they could possibly throw her in a testing and see how she does. That's, I think, could be coming sooner than later,
Yeah.
and we
Look,
will see where that goes.
it's back to. I mean, there's no doubt the appeal of F1. To your point before about through your region, it's just gaining popularity because it used to be appeal to a smaller group or a very specific demographic, but it's becoming much more broader. And I think it's the natural progression.
And also, Netflix played a big role in that, and not just in Saudi Arabia, worldwide.
Mhm.
Like F1 gained popularity more when it came to Saudi Arabia from many young fans. Uh,
Yes.
Older fans, such as myself, I've been watching since 2000 to 2003. Uh,
Hmm.
those are the first races I started to hook up to F1. 2004 is like my first full season.
Okay.
Um, but the young fans, most of them, especially like the men or women, it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
Like when they
Yep.
came, they just, and also not just in Saudi, worldwide, this TV show Drive to Survive just got
Hmm.
a lot of people into F1. And
Yes.
one time I was walking around and asking a lot of people in the circuit and in general, like, how did you, like, I'm like, seriously, just tell me, how did you get into F1? Just me asking them. It's not
Yes.
recording a video or content or anything, just
Yeah.
asking.
Just a conversation.
So I'd say 10 people, at least six people told me they got into it through Drive to Survive. Four of
Yes.
them tell me um, they either been watching it for a while or they came from a different country and they've been watching it for, yeah, they're a big fans of F1 for a while as well. Or they came to one race and they got hooked into it and they came back again in the following season. So yeah, six, I'd say six out of four,
That's
they got into
yeah.
F1 because of the Drive to Survive show on Netflix. And
Yep.
now when Formula One did that, you have a show specific for NASCAR,
Hmm.
which is also a very big name in motorsport. And
Absolutely.
specifically, they only race in America. That's the one part, but it's an American racing series at the end of the day. But they also
Absolutely.
have their own Netflix show. And I think everyone is going to be following suit after that when they notice the popularity F1 gained from just a TV series.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we could
Well,
see
and there's lots
more
of sports, isn't there? I
important
mean,
into that.
you've just got to look at the Ryan Reynolds Welcome to Wrexham TV series about them buying a football team in Wales, where there is this, people love a story, they love trying to get behind it and understand it, and that's where, whether it's F1 or NASCAR or football, there there are billions of consumers who consume Netflix type television and want to get into it and understand it and really understand the stories behind it.
Yes, I agree with you. Like even the team that Ryan Reynolds invested in, the football team,
Yes.
many have not even known anything about it. Now, if you look at it,
No.
many of the players in that team, some of them became like known stars almost. And
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
and you know what? They did the right thing. They saw the opportunity and took it and jumped on
Absolutely.
the social media train. I
Yep.
would do the same if Ryan Reynolds is my team owner and he's a down to earth guy.
I was just going
Uh,
to say, I mean, there's no doubt he is, and him and Rob McElhenney are just they're just cool dudes. There's no doubt about it. So,
yeah, I mean they are. You can say it in them, and also he's an investor in F1. There's a
yes.
team called the Alpine, a French
Hmm.
team, formerly used to
Okay.
be known as Renault. And
Right.
if there's anything we've learned about Renault is them changing their names more than winning titles. I know that sounds bad, but they were Renault, then they were Lotus, then they became Renault, then they went back to being Lotus, then they became Renault again, then from Renault to become now Alpine.
Hmm.
And throughout all this time, I mean, in the last, I mean, even them as Lotus in the recent, just I think in the early 2000s, it
Yeah.
was still a Renault engine. I think there was just one time when they became the Lotus took the Mercedes engine. I forgot the
Yeah.
story exactly what it was about with their engines. So yeah, now there is Alpine, but the engine is the same, still Renault.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
engineers are the same, and a lot of things got shaken up in that team. So I think last season they had this idea of bringing multi superstars or known either like as actors or let's say boxers, athletes to invest into the Alpine team. So one of the investors was Ryan
Okay.
Reynolds.
Yeah.
PR wise, in terms of gaining popularity, not just popularity, just like to gain a name or something like that,
Hmm.
is just to have certain names as the
Absolutely.
investor.
To open the doors in a way, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I got the chance to meet Anthony Joshua,
Okay.
uh, a massive guy, by the way.
Yeah.
Scary when you think about it. When you think you have like you try to build an image around your head, like
Hmm.
how the guy would look, and so when the guy stood in front of me, I'm like, oh my god, what am I looking at? Like,
Yeah.
and he's huge, and his hand, like when he shook my hand, I shook his hand like this, and it's like two hands, like just cover mine. And I'm like, I do not want to be punched by this man ever. So I
Yes.
saw him,
Yeah.
and the first thing when he appeared into the F1 paddock, he just straight went to the Alpine because
Yep.
he's one of the investors as well.
Aha.
So yeah, I think now more sport TV. Sorry, more sports. Either let's say in football. I don't know
Hmm.
about rugby. I
Yeah.
understand rugby, but I don't watch it. To be
Right.
fair with you,
Yeah.
um, I think there's more. Uh, how can I say? Either motorsport series or any other kind of sports, they're more leaning towards um, having their own shows, their own yeah. So it's more like into that domain, having their own TV shows. And now I'm not talking like a YouTube show or something like that. No,
You know.
more like
Yeah.
into a platform like either Prime or Netflix,
Yes.
that sort
Yeah.
of things. And they've noticed the surge in certain sports series having this big
Yeah.
jumps. Mainly, let's start with F1, and now when you see like in Miami, wherever Messi goes, they
Yeah.
bring him. They bring
Yeah.
him since he's in years like whatever, like NBA game. Come, Messi, watch it.
Yeah.
Messi watch it. Maybe Messi doesn't even know or care. Maybe he knows what NBA is, but he
Yeah.
just doesn't care. But just him being
Yeah.
there, doesn't know. Ronaldo in Saudi Arabia right now, wherever the man goes, it's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
everything turns to gold when he
Yeah.
touches. So
Yeah. Look, I mean, I think for me, it's the and whether it's F1 or footballers we're talking about or other things, a lot of them were either, I don't know, I think for a lot of people seen as being an elite sport or being a complex sport that you needed to know a lot about to get into, so that the you needed to get to that level of understanding was quite technical. But I think what a lot of these shows provide is they kind of open it up so people can actually, they can understand the core tenets of the sport and the personalities and the battles that go on between manufacturers and the strategy. And I think it makes it easy for people to get into something like F1. If you go back before, the work that you do, or the TV series that we're talking about, if you were coming to F1 with no background, it's in a way a tough sport to learn and understand the rules and the battles and the personalities and the technologies. But those sorts of shows actually really open it up to people, and I think that's where the appeal comes from.
yeah, I mean, again, like as you said, like there's some sports if you watch them without understanding,
Yeah.
then you're simply lost and you will never pick interest. The one
Yes.
sport that is easy to pick interest from is football. I'm talking
Yep.
about European football,
Yes.
because literally kick the ball into the net and
Yes.
a
Yeah.
lot, and it is gonna take you one game to know what's the offside rule, what's the free kick, what's the penalty. It's gonna take you literally one game to
Yeah.
understand it, and you don't need anybody to explain it. And even if somebody does, then you just have the image of what football is.
Yeah.
I'll give you two games, then you understand. Oh, there's the league games, there's
Yeah.
Champions Leagues, and there's
Yeah.
World
Although
Cup,
to
and
be
what.
fair, it did take, I don't know if you've watched the Ted Lasso TV series, it did take Ted Lasso a couple of seasons to figure out quite a few of those things, but maybe that's just in the TV series.
Yeah, but F1, like I have my older brother.
Hmm.
He watches it, but
Okay.
not consistently. Um, well, he admires the sport, and he's like, for example, like tell me, is like, man, I just hope Max stops dominating. What he's doing is incredible, and
Yeah.
it is what he's doing is actually legendary. But it's like he's making the sport boring now. Like, how can I watch when I know the guy's already gonna win? Like, you turn on your TV. But
Yeah.
then I told him, I was like, you have to understand, and this is what I understand. He doesn't have technical knowledge, more
Hmm.
likely. Like,
Yeah.
these cars are not equal. This is not.
Yes.
We're not here talking about what's called. Um, we're simply not talking about like IndyCar. IndyCar is a spec series.
Yes.
Formula Two is a spec series. If we talk about uh, what do you call it? What else is there? Formula 3, Formula 4. These are spec series. It means
Yeah.
the cars are all the same.
Yeah.
Um, all what you need to do is just figure out how to set up those cars, and teams work hard to find the perfect setup for their drivers so they can
Hmm.
go faster with the car. Formula 1 is a whole different conversation, right?
Indeed.
And the one thing they're doing is that they try to basically find the best design. You have
Yeah.
a set of regulation. This set of regulation is building a car on a certain design, for example, right?
Yes.
Once you're done, uh, you go test it. You have 3 days of testing. After the
Yeah.
3 days of testing, um, you have the first Grand Prix, and in the
Hmm.
Grand Prix, you have first day of practice. You have second day of practice. Sorry, practice one, practice two, and then practice three. Then you have qualifying. So
Yes.
this is as much as you have with the car, and whatever design you design is going to show if it's good or
Yeah.
not. And of course,
Yeah.
each team has its own engine. And in F1 currently, you have Mercedes engine, Ferrari engine, the Renault engine,
Hmm.
and I think Honda engine. I think soon we're gonna have Audi.
Hmm.
Next year, Audi is joining. So you have five engines, 10 teams, 20 cars.
Yes.
That's pretty much all what you have.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's about what your engineers can design, and when designing, you don't
Blessings.
just design and go through. Almost every race, you have to bring an upgrade, and this upgrade could be suspension, could be an upgrade to the engine. Not necessarily upgrade to the engine, but like just modifying it, because the engine has to be, for example, certain spec V6
Yes.
hybrid, which means with
Yeah.
a battery. So uh, in terms of the setup, you have to find the perfect setup for your car. And then
Yeah.
if you don't find it, you will be like, right, is it a setup problem? Is it a driver problem? Or
Yeah.
is it just an upgrade problem that we need to bring an upgrade? And
Or
sometimes,
or a strategy problem, because
or yeah,
the sport is,
strategies as well plays along line. So once I told my, I know I've been rambling a lot, but once I told my brother all this, then he was like, "Oh, so Max is now winning," because I was like, "No, Max currently is the best
yeah.
because um, it's about a man and machine combination, as we started from the beginning of the podcast we were talking
Yeah.
about, but it's also having to be the best person to start with a certain regulation. 2014 up to 2020, it was all Mercedes dominating from 2014 all the way up to 2020,
Yeah.
because Mercedes nailed all those regulations and they had the best engine. 2021 came, one single tweak into the changes of those regulations.
Yeah.
We have
Change.
we have Mercedes and Red Bull on the same level. So it
Yes.
just sometimes one simple thing can change things around.
Yeah.
So yeah, F1 is very much complicated. It's just like for me watching baseball. I understand,
Yes.
yeah, this man has to hit the ball, and if it goes out, he has to run all the bases. But if one guy
Yeah.
catches it, then what? So that's where my brain, for example, stuck.
Yeah.
But going forward, when you learn things, then you start picking interest into it.
Yeah. And
So
look, I
yeah,
think the other thing for me with F1 is that it's a, oh, dropped it. I can't hear you.
hello, can you hear me?
Oh, you're back again. You're back again. Yeah, I don't know. We just
Sorry,
had a bit
sorry,
of an internet glitch.
it's
No, I
okay.
was just going to say that the thing for me for F1 is that it's quite a visceral sport. I mean, I clearly remember going to my first F1 in Melbourne in the very early 2000s, and that's dating me. Well, in fact, two things. One is I remember quite clearly our offices were, I don't know, maybe 200 or 300 meters away from the F1 track around Albert Park Lake. And
Uh-huh.
even at work during practice, you kind of had I don't know, maybe a city block with 3 or 4 buildings, and then Main Street, St Kilda Road in Melbourne, and then our building was on this side. You could you could hear it, but you could feel them. And then going to the race itself, I remember my first F1 race, and kind of a bit oblivious, to be perfectly honest with you, and not realizing exactly how fast they go, because you're watching for them to come around, where I was sitting, and you kind of blink and all they're not there, and your brain's kind of just freaking out, going, well, hey, no, 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 where did it go to? But when you physically experience it, and you hear it, and it does something to you. In fact, we have that here. I mean, we've got, we do a lot of pretty cool muscle cars, and we've got a pretty big
Oh,
facility. But every time we've got a ZL1 Camaro here at the moment, and every time that thing starts up, it doesn't matter where you are in our compound, you hear it, and you're like, "Hang on, that's
it's like an
pretty cool." It's
it's like an
just,
earthquake.
it is, yeah, yeah. So it is, F1's a good thing to watch on TV, but if you get the opportunity to actually go and participate, it just blows
You
your socks off.
definitely, it definitely, you need a screen in front of you to know what's going on if you're watching on
Yes,
track,
yes,
because if you are on track, all you're gonna see is like this, like just like that's it, it's gone.
yeah,
But at least for you, you've been in the V8, and I think, oh, the V8 and V10 era, where
yeah,
those engines you needed like earplugs or something to listen properly. Now it's a whole different conversation because the V6 are pretty, they're not loud.
yeah,
They're really not loud. And I know
yes,
for a person who goes for the first time is gonna be like, oh my god, this is too loud.
yeah,
I'm
yes,
like, you're
yeah,
lucky the V8 and V10s don't exist anymore, because those things, it
true.
sounded like just a screaming airplane engine. That's
Yeah,
what it sounded
yeah,
like.
very much
So
so. But I think that's part of it. If you get the opportunity to go, and to be fair to any motorsport, really, F1 obviously is the pinnacle. But honestly, I don't think it matters what sort of motorsport that you go to. If you have the opportunity to go and watch, you then truly get an experience or an understanding of the noise, how fast they go, how
yeah,
incredibly skilled the drivers are. It actually just gives you a much better understanding. I don't know, maybe it's like kind of there's a big difference between watching a cooking show where some person's cooking a meal and being able to also, try that meal in some way, shape, or form. It gives you a much better sense of what it's about.
would you, I know we've been talking for now, but we're
Yeah.
on the closing stations. So would you one day be interested as Auto Group International to be part of any motorsport series?
Yeah, absolutely. And it it depends on the level. I give you a very practical example. I talked about the incredible initiatives that JW Networks did with the Women in Motorsport event, which, as I said, a bunch of my crew went to. We sponsored it, and it was a super cool day. And it was on a go kart track here in Colombo, and they were uh, electric, go karts. And as I said, the crew that were there, the female team members, across engineering, finance, HR, etc., a few of our male crew were there, but there were, I don't know, 6 or 8 of our engineers that spent a considerable amount of time looking at the electric car. And when we're lucky, in that we've got, we have everything to build cars, electrical, mechanical engineers, our R&D crew, then through, welding, paint, HVAC, plastic, the list goes on. So we were all there going, we could build one of these. And then we're kind of contemplating what do we need to, because we've got quite a big facility here. And we've got sort of a 3-acre compound. We were trying to work out what we need to move so we can build ourselves a track. Um, so yeah, I can absolutely see us being involved. It might be at a very grassroots level, but in and itself, that would be kind of cool. We pride ourselves on being world class and world first at what we do on a lot of our vehicle platforms. But yeah, I think there's a bit of a buzz maybe internally about, yeah, maybe as I said, it's a starting point, building our own little go kart. We'd have to build a couple so we can race,
Okay.
and have a little bit of fun.
Well, if you do and end up building your go kart and everything, I'll make sure to come there and check it out. But Mr. Rob, I don't want to take long much from your time. Thank you very much
No problems.
for your precious hour that you've given
No,
us,
no, happy to
and
happy to be here.
big thanks to Georgina for making this happen. Honestly, I did not know what I'll be walking into. Um, she's like, right, I'm just gonna put you with Mr. Rob Hill, and I was like, hold on, give me an introduction first. I don't know what
Yeah,
I'm gonna do.
yeah.
You just asked me, are you free or not? And I was like, yes, I'm free, but
Game
give me an
on.
introduction. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I was like, you know what?
Nothing like a good
Why not?
conversation, really.
So I was like, you know what? Why not? Let me just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
jump into it. And thank you very much, and for everyone who've been listening. See you soon. And next time is gonna be with Georgina and the rest of the crew. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody. And Ahmed, just one last thing. You're very welcome to come and visit us in Sri Lanka. So
I will.
jump
I
on a
will.
plane. What is it? It's a 4-hour flight. You can come down and check out what we do and look at some pretty cool cars. And maybe we'll have a go-kart for you to have a play with then.
Definitely will do that. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.